is up, friends? Back again with another Forcemaster guide. Today's guide is going to be a little bit more about a frost-based build for the Forcemaster class and what I'm currently using it for. That said, there are definitely other builds out there that do different things, so I implore you to go out there and look up some other ones. But let's just get right down to it. Let's explain the build, and at the end I'm going to briefly go over one of the fights I was able to do in Brightstone Ruin. Hope you guys enjoy, and if you did, please leave a like and give me a comment. Always appreciate it, guys. Enjoy. Guys, so let's just go over the Martial Tome setup. I am going to skip a little bit of stuff just because otherwise this might be a 10-minute video and I'm really trying to keep it short. So, that in mind, let's start with the basics. Any good build is going to need to identify a reliable and efficient way to regenerate focus. For this Frost build, I'm actually choosing to invest most of my points, or not most of my points, but the starter of my points into Frost Fury. Now, the reason behind that is twofold. One, because over its channeled use, it basically restores 5 focus, and that's assuming you don't interrupt it. And also, two, because this build is primarily going to be used for trying to solo endgame content, which means I need a good sustain to ensure that I'm not going to die midway through a fight. Now, the reason why this ability is so good, because essentially 30% of the damage it does is going to be refunded back as HP, and if any of the Frost Furies are at critical strikes, it's going to double the efficiency of my HP Dream Gem, which means I get more health back. So, very good focus generation tool, very good healing tool, probably the best one because honestly it's not cooldown related, it's related to whether or not you get critical strikes in Frost form, and because we're a Frost Forcemaster, it's very easy. That said, let's talk about our Focus Stomp. In this build, it's Ice Rain. This is pretty much the only ability that isn't on cooldown that you can spam continuously as a Forcemaster that consumes focus. Now, what makes this one so good and also kind of bad at the same time is that this ability is based off consecutive use. Now, what I mean by that is to reach its fullest potential, you need to spam nothing but Ice Rain. Trying to animation cancel or spell weave, it's just going to basically reset the cooldown, and you know, if you want to be able to spam this to the fullest potential, you have to just do it consecutively. Now, where that comes into play, where speed matters, is essentially Cold Snap. Enemies that are inside the Cold Snap radius receive additional cold-based damage. Now, the reason why that's important, the reason why being able to spam it, eke it out as much as possible, is because Cold Snap is a 5-second circle-based AoE. It's stationary, it won't move. So once it's on the ground, it's up to you to apply as much damage as quickly as you can while it's up, because it buffs your damage, and Ice Rain is buffed by things that stand in Cold Snap. Now, Cold Snap is the, it was Ice Coil, but we've upgraded it since to this. Essentially, it chills things that are critically hit in the circle. It gives back focus, assuming you invest a point into this last tier. And of course, enemies that are inside receive additional frost-based damage. And that, of course, in itself, that is the entire combo that Frost Mages live and die for. After that, I like to go for little sub-combos. My preferred freeze, I mean, I will still use Dragon Roll, but my preferred freeze in a single target fight is actually going to be Glacial Beam. It's kind of idiot-proof, because I usually, fuck things up, but in this instance, it's a guaranteed freeze. It doesn't have any range limits to it. Assuming you're within range of your target, it's going to freeze them. Dragon Roll is going to be your better AoE freeze if you're going to be doing a fight that involves a lot of, adds and stuff where you want to freeze all of them into a Cold Snap and whatnot. But just because I know how silly I get sometimes, Glacial Beam is the one I'm going to go for. After that, because we're using a freeze build of sorts, we're going to want to invest down this tree in the Snowball talents. Primarily because, one, the tier 1 just reduces its cooldown to 30 seconds from 36. This one simply adds extra cold damage to frozen targets. So if you're combining Glacial Beam with Snowball, you're going to be doing extra damage on your Snowball, and then extra damage is always a very good thing. After that, I prefer to take the additional tier 3 for this one just because it helps create Frost Orbits, and Frost Orbits, if you didn't know, let me just say, Frost Fury, Glacial Beam, and Snowball all generate a Frost Orbit per one use, of whenever you use them. And if you get 3 of them, you can use Dragon Frost. It's an instant free cast. Once you have 3 Frost Orbits, you can suspend the ability. It refunds focus. It applies chills, and that's a pretty good ability, especially for someone that wants to kite things and not necessarily have to struggle for focus. After that, though, that's pretty much all of the ice-based abilities. I know some people like to play with Blazing Palm and Frost Palm and use the upgraded version of Force Blast, but that's not really where I'm going with this build. After that, I'm going to talk quickly about the fire component of this. I'm really, again, I'm trying to stay outside of fire stance, and with that said, I'm not going to want to invest any points in this, even though it's going to help me generate flame orbits, and I'm not really interested in using dual dragons. I'm really just interested in, staying in Frost form. So that said, I'm going to take the upgraded version of Inferno that simply lets me instant cast it. Instant casting is important because if you're not, it's a 2.5 second cast. That's 2.5 seconds that I have to stand still, and I'm really not interested in doing that. So we take the instant form because it still has an important part to play in this rotation. Now, where the important part comes into play is actually with Short Fuse and Meteor Shower. Short Fuse is still a great dot. It explodes, and if we upgrade it to this one, after 10 seconds. But the primary reason why I invested points into this is mostly for the on-hit recovery of 16 focus. If you're essentially using this as your opening rotation before you switch over to Ice Rain and Cold Snap, you're going to be regenerating focus freely for 8 seconds, which, in my opinion, is a great way to start a rotation, because you don't have to worry about focus. You can just focus on making sure you're getting the most out of your opening rotation. After that, I take Meteor Shower just down to this because it's an insanely good AoE. I would say almost every build should be using it, regardless of whether or not they're Frost or Burn. I mean, Burn Force Masters are obviously going to be using this, but that's beside the point. After that, because this is a soloing build, I'm really just going for utility, so I do take 3 points into Frost Palm just for the chilling effect and the increased damage. Again, being able to freeze targets that are freezable, that are not going to move even though they're frozen, it's really good. And after that, I take 1 point in Frost Armor for the 10% HP recovery and the potential for 6 extra percent if you're lucky. I mean, NPCs are going to continue hitting you, regardless of whether or not you're in an indestructible block of ice. So, you're probably going to get 16% of your HP back regardless, but if you're facing another person, maybe they'll probably stop hitting you. After that, I go straight into Backstep. The first here simply just increases the move back radius, so from 8 meters to 14. And if you invest even further down, it adds a freeze component to your backstep, and it increases the cooldown. The increased cooldown kind of sucks, but it allows you to escape out of knockdowns, stuns, dazes, and or unconsciousness. The freeze component, though, is the one that I really like for it because I can actually combine that with Snowball if I'm paying attention. And again, that is kind of reliant on me paying attention, so yeah. And then usually after that, depending on what kind of fight I'm doing, I'll look at things in Divine Veil. The first two are kind of just, a necessity. They don't have any real good components about them. They do increase, the overall duration of it, but they also increase the cooldown, and you really can't get around that. So the one thing we like to focus on is actually just Tier 3. And between these two stages, it just comes down to preference. Stage 1 simply makes it an immovable, and it's a stationary shell, so if you cast it, it's going to stay where you are regardless of whether or not you're moving. But if you take Stage 2, it's going to become a movable shell that follows you around. The only downside to either one of these is, of course, the cooldown. This one is 36 seconds, and this one is 45 seconds. Now, usually I like the movable one because, again, we're looking to idiot-proof this thing so that not even I can mess it up, because I gotta tell you, I mess things up quite often. After that, I go for the Impact. This is as far as I take Impact. Again, and it's really just primarily for the blocked ranged attacks against ranged bosses that throw stuff at you. It won't block the entire projectile, but it will take off a good chunk of what damage you would have taken. And again, if you are interested, there's another build up there for Blazing Palm, Frost Palm, and Force Blast. It is pretty good. I've seen it, and I do like it. But this is my soloing build for clearing bosses at an endgame PvE level. So yeah, let's talk about a fight. Right, so hopefully, as you guys can tell, I slowed this last part of the video down just to try and explain how the rotation should work. So in an ideal world, you would have started with your fire stance and done Inferno, Short Fuse, and Meteor Shower, but because I knew these jerk-offs are going to jump towards me and basically ruin any stationary AoE that I did, I kind of just waited until they got close enough and clumped up that I could actually do my full rotation. Now I started with fire just because I'm really just trying to kill these ads right now so I can really primarily focus on the boss, but as soon as he got clumped up, I used Dragon Whirl, froze all of them in place, dropped Cold Snap, and spammed Ice Rain. Now, the one thing that I really messed up on here is the fact that I didn't really chain my Ice Rain and Cold Snap very well. Usually, with how you want Cold Snap to work, you want the ability, you want there to be a lot of Ice Rain already in the air. Like right when I casted Cold Snap, there wasn't a whole lot, so I didn't really get the benefit from the full duration of that Cold Snap. There were a couple of times during this fight that I actually did it correctly, which resulted in a lot of DPS, but I think I was just primarily concerned with making sure I didn't die to some stupid reason. So yeah, I guess that's my excuse for today. Anyways, guys, if you liked what you saw, you liked what you heard, you should like the video. Maybe even subscribe. I don't know when I'll be coming out with another video, but I think I'm going to try to. I don't know. I haven't figured that out just quite yet. But yeah, if you have any feedback, please leave it for me in the comments, whether it's good or bad. I don't care. Not going to hurt my feelings.